Hello again, everyone. In my videos this week, I want to help us dig into the closings in Paul's letters and the way that they blend rhetorical and epistolary conventions together. I want to use my teaching time with you to do both these things and to think together with you about the pastoral letters of Paul, 1st and 2nd Timothy, Titus, and then also about Paul's letter to Philemon. I want to talk to you about the final part of the four-part analysis I use to read and better understand Paul's letters. You remember this analysis. We've been using it for the past several weeks. So far, I've talked with you about the opening, and we've seen the clues that grow in particular in the opening out of the way Paul names and describes himself and other co-senders, if there are any, in the letter, and the way that Paul does the same thing for those to whom the letter is addressed. He describes them, and these descriptions provide us clues about the context and into which the letter is written. I've talked to you secondly about what I call the transitional section, and by calling it that, what I'm drawing attention to is the way that significant information comes from the prayer, the narrative of events leading up to the writing of the letter, and especially from the rhetorical proposition of the letter. Information that enables the letter to flow easily from the opening into the body, and information that provides us additional clues to help us understand the contents and the context of the letter. The opening of the letter, the transition of the letter. Last week we talked about the body of the letter as we looked at Romans, and I introduced you to the way that a rhetorical analysis opens up for us how the body supports the main proposition of a Pauline letter in sections. This enables us to see the way that the particular sections and all of the sections connect with one another and help to explain and expand and support and ultimately prove the truth of the proposition that lies at the heart of the letter. So now that we've talked about the opening and the transition and the body of the letter, I want to use this time to talk with us about the fourth and last part of an ancient letter, the closing, and then I'll discuss what precedes that in terms of a rhetorical summary, which is called a peroratio, or a peroration. So let's get started. The fascinating thing to me about the closing of Paul's letters is the way that it continues to integrate conventions associated with letter writing and with rhetoric. For rhetoric usually plays a major role in the closing of Paul's letters, just as we've seen it do in the proposition and in the body of the letter. Ancient rhetoric talked about two things that were necessary parts of the end of a persuasive speech: the peroratio, or summary of what the body of the letter has shown or proved to be true, and the conclusion or formal closing of the speech. As we'll see, both parts, along with letter conventions, are important parts to be analyzed as we form our interpretation of the letter as a whole and of the parts of the letter that precede the closing. So now let's look at those conventions, the conventional features associated with the closing of ancient letters. You may want to have a copy of Appian's letter to look at, as I'm going to be referring to it. There's actually a lot of variety in the features that are associated with the closing of ancient letters. I want to discover that as we look at the closing of Appian's letter to Epimachus. Here are the words of the closing. Appian says to his father, "Salute Capito much, and my brother, and sister, and my friends. I am sending thee by Timon a little picture of me. Moreover, my name is Anthonus Maximus. Fare thee well, I pray." And after that, we read in Appian's letter a chain of names that express the carriers who apparently were tasked with carrying the letter from where it was written back to Appian's home and Appian's family. So let's take time to break down this closing that I've just read to you and that you may have in front of you and that you're looking at right now, so we can see its parts, its features, its elements more clearly. First comes the salute, or the greeting. It's a closing greeting. In the case of Appian's letter, the greeting is sent to members of his family, his brother, his sister, and then to someone named Capito. He's not apparently part of Appian's own nuclear family, but either part of his extended family, or maybe what we would call today a BFF, a best friend forever. That seems to be why he's greeted before the others, even before the others in Appian's nuclear family. And notice Appian asks his father to give his salute to Capito with many greetings, and then to give his greetings to his family members and friends. The second element in the closing of Appian's letter, after the salute, the words of greeting, closing greeting, is the element of information. There's an information section which shares information. There are two pieces of information that Appian wants his father to know before the letter closes. First, he wants his father to know that he's sending along a little picture together with the letter. It's not a photograph, obviously. It's most likely a little painting or maybe a sketch made on some kind of material that could be sent along with the scroll on which the letter is written. And the sketch or the little painting probably shows Appian in his uniform, in the same way that people who serve in the military forces today are proud of their uniforms and often send pictures back to their family. My conclusion that this is what Appian is doing as he mentions this first piece of information at the close of his letter. And along with that information, Appian also tells his father that he's been given a new name. It is a Latin name. And my supposition, my conclusion, is that this name has been given to him probably by his commanding officer in the Navy. The Roman Navy, we know, included recruits from all over the empire. Initially, those recruits would have all sorts of different ethnic names. And for military purposes, they would often be given Latin names to make the commanding officer's job of remembering and using their names easier. Appian's given Latin name in the Roman Navy, he tells his father by way of information, is now Antinous Maximus, which translates into English as something like Big Antony. So Appian must have been a big guy. The third and last element in the closing of Appian's letter, after the greetings, after the information, is a final prayer wish, a brief one. Farewell. And that's it. A final signature found in almost all of our letters today is only found in a few ancient letters and on a few Pauline letters. Most letters, like Appian's, don't have one. A final salute or greetings, a section containing some information that needs to be passed on before the letter finishes, that hasn't been included in the letter so far. A closing prayer wish. These are the elements of the letter closing in Appian's letter, and they're typical features found in the closings of a lot of ancient letters. Now, what about Paul's letters? We'll turn to that in the next video.